Finn and Fred was getting in the bed on top of Penny, and when I just started recording, he was looking at her like, what is happening? Peanut butter and everything on it, and it went flying on the floor.
Hey guys, happy day 12 of Vlogmas. I'm starting the vlog with a book review. I finished The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana, and I gave it a 2.25. Not great. It didn't do a whole lot for me. I have my call power ratings right here. We're going to go through it. So characters, I did give the characters a 3-star. I did like our main character, Mika Moon, and I love that name. I love the name Mika Moon. Mika's only, it's been one of my favorite names, but like Mika Moon, like the way it just comes off the tongue, it's so nice. I did like her as a character and thought she was likable and had depth to her. Everyone else didn't have depth though. I liked the idea of her teaching these kids, but I don't think the kids were developed enough because I couldn't really tell them apart. I didn't know who was who. I had a very like vague understanding of who each girl was. And then the love interest, Jamie, I did not like him. I don't think he was necessarily a bad person, but I think there was a lack of boundaries and he was very flat. There was like, he was very surface level. There could have been so much more done with him. Atmosphere was probably my favorite part. It is cozy fantasy. That's what, you know, people call it, and it very much is cozy fantasy. This felt very cozy. It was very picturesque, and the English countryside vibes that I love so much, you definitely get them here. This feels like a spring book. It mainly takes place in late fall and winter time, but this feels spring to me. I know blue is a winter, it can be winter or summer, but blue isn't really a spring color in my mind, but this is a spring book. It has spring vibes, which I will be filming a TikTok in like February of talking about spring books, and this one, it might go on there. The writing, I give it 2. It didn't do a whole lot for me. I think the author really did a lot of telling us things that happened, but not showing them when they happened. It's so hard to describe. It could have been so good if we had these scenes and really got time with these characters, but instead the author was just telling us a lot rather than showing us these scenes happening. And then the parentheses, I hate parentheses. I don't know, the author is trying to get to a certain goal, like word goal or something, page goal, but it was just the parentheses making references to like the first chapter of the book, and it's little things that we don't need. Maybe it's to make it cute and quirky, but no, it was annoying. The plot, I think this book is really not marketed right. I bought this in the fantasy section. On Goodreads, it is listed as a fantasy, but this is a romance. I really was excited to know about Mika and her going to this house, nowhere house, to train these little girls to be witches. That sounded so cute to me, and I thought that could be a whole lot of fun. But no, when it was on page, it wasn't executed properly. It mainly, really in the third quarter, the second half of the book, was mainly all romance, and I did not feel chemistry between these characters at all. I thought the guy was a jerk, and I get there's like enemies to lovers, grumpy sunshine, but no, like Mika deserved better. And then the big plot point that I would say is like the third act breakup or whatever, oh my gosh, she shouldn't have came back, because you know this is a romance, so there's a formula. I don't understand how Mika put up with this. I do not understand. Like, Mika girl, I was rooting for you, but with that romance, I really don't know. I think it's low-key kind of toxic. But there were really good themes here of inclusion and representation, about how everybody needs somebody. I don't care. People are like, I like to be alone in my bedroom all day and just, you know, I'm not like other girls. I'm edgy. I'm a lone wolf. Like, shut up. Everybody needs somebody. Everybody needs a community. That is just how humans are made. I think it is natural instinct that we are a species that needs to be among others, and everybody needs that, and it's so important to have family, to have, and I'm not even saying blood family, I'm saying found family and everything. Everybody needs somebody. And then representation. When I've read a book where I feel represented, oh my gosh, it's one of the best feelings in the world. I just feel, oh, knocking stuff down, I feel so warm inside and giddy and just like, you know, the emotions want to come out. I guess butterflies, they're wanting to fly out. It feels so good. And in this, we have these little girls who are people of color, and they are witches, and they have never been allowed to interact with anybody. They're not allowed to leave this property that they live on. It's a very strict life that they live. But then comes Mika, who is also a woman of color and a witch, and a young woman as well. So they see themselves in her, and they get to have that positive female role model in their life. And that was so fantastic getting to read about that, and so pure and wholesome. And I wish the book focused on that more than on the romance. I think that character, Jamie, the one who's the romantic interest, was just there for having a romance, to have romance included in the story. I don't think the author really knew what to do with him. So this book didn't do a whole lot for me. I wouldn't really recommend picking it up, but if you do, I would probably say go the library route, go the ebook route, audiobook route, rather than buying your own physical copy, just because I am going to be taking this to a little free library, not going to keep this around. But it was a cutesy little book, just wasn't for me. It is 8:50. I'm about to get into my new read, because I have like nothing else going on and I'm bored. So when you're bored, that's what I only suggest. Pick up a book, because people are like, how do you read so much in a day? I don't sit around being bored. I go and do something when I have those feelings. That can be watching YouTube. It can be, I usually just watch one episode of my show a day, and then I read all those other times. But this is the complete Persepolis is how I thought it was pronounced, but I could be wrong. I really don't know. I've only struggled with like see, it's not Opolis, there's an E. I've only struggled with words that are like that. The Greeks say I can't do it. But let me, oh, and this is by Marjan Satrapi. Again, could be saying that wrong. I really need to look it up, and I will, trust me, I will. So this is a graphic memoir. It was on the New York Times Best 100 Books of the Century so far, and it's been adapted right there. Yeah, on the back is where it says Sony Pictures Classics. I was like, I thought it said who adapted it. But let me tell you what this is about. As I said, this is a memoir, so this is a nonfiction, a graphic nonfiction book. I only say graphic novel, but I'm like, it's not a novel, it's a memoir. I read a graphic memoir last month. This is going to be my second one ever. This is about our author, her childhood years in revolutionary Iran, and then her teenage trials, that's what it says, but teenage years in Vienna, what it was like growing up in Europe as somebody who fled, a refugee who fled Iran. It kind of reminds me of one of my favorite books of this year, which is Disoriental by Dajawadi was the last name. My bad for not remembering the name. But as a French book that was translated about a character who grew up in Iran and then had to flee to France. This sounds like the non-fiction version of that, in a sense, except we're in Vienna, and you know, I'm sure it's going to be a lot more different since this is a memoir. This really happened. This is this woman's true story, and I think graphic formats are really interesting to do a memoir, but this does look like there's a lot going on. There's a lot of words with this, and that does kind of scare me, because sometimes I will get overwhelmed with the amount of words and I'm not really paying attention to the art, and being a graphic, the art is so important. So hopefully, I need to stop saying SO, hopefully I don't get too overwhelmed, but I will let y'all know. I'm only going to read about 30 minutes of this today, and then going into the rest of the week it will be what I'm reading the majority of the time. But since I finished a book late tonight, not tonight, but this evening rather than during the day, I'm starting this at nighttime. I read 11% of the book, which was 40 pages, and yeah, I'm loving this. I totally expected that it would. It's going extremely well. I do have my notes here, and yeah, I wrote like a whole paragraph of notes already, and then Goodreads only lets you use a certain amount of characters when you do updates, so I have a Google Doc instead. But I love that this started out, the collection starts out with an introduction that really, so here's our introduction. It's about 1.5 pages. It starts out with the history of the land that is Iran, going all the way back to 2000 BC, going to, you know, what led up to the Islamic Revolution. And this country, this part of the world is so fascinating throughout history. You guys know I've been going through my watching movies in historical order, and obviously Persia is involved with all of that. And there was so much history in the Middle East and in Iran especially. It's so incredibly fascinating, and unfortunately here in the West we don't learn too much about it. But one of the things with me going to Christian school, I was lucky to learn about, you know, the Bible and in Abrahamic religions, Abrahamic, that which is Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. They all stem from a lot of the same stories, and so therefore, you know, the history is all connected. And a quote that I loved in that introduction, and I think is so important, and I talk about a lot when I talk about countries like Iran, and let me just read the quote and you'll get it. An entire nation should not be judged by the wrongdoings of a few extremists. A lot of people, when they think Iran, they think terrorism and, you know, all that crazy kind of stuff. There are millions of people in these countries, think like Russia and, you know, all these other adversary countries, and they think everybody from there is an evil person. No, people are people. That is why The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak, I think, is the perfect book to showcase that. That book takes place in Nazi Germany, and it shows you there are innocent children and innocent people in all these countries everywhere in the world, and we should not judge them because of the few people you're going to see on TV. They're going to put the crazy stuff because bad news is what sells. Extremism sells. So that's what you're going to be seeing in the media. But once we get into the actual collection, we have Marjan, is how you say her name, according to a YouTube video I watched. So Marjan, we are starting out when she is a young girl in the early days of when the Islamic Revolution is beginning, and you can really just feel her innocence as she's telling her story. It feels like an actual kid is telling you the story, and it reads almost like a children's book. Now, obviously, this book is not for children. This would be a lot for a kid to take in, but I know there's those gifted kids, but this is a lot with history and even, I would say, current affairs, a lot to take in. But it really immerses you in the story, reading the innocence of this young girl who is trying to get an understanding of what is happening in the world around her. And then, so Reza Shah, I'm not sure, he was the father of the last Shah, I'm not sure on pronunciation. I had no idea how he came into power. Y'all know I've read 3 Iranian books this year, but this is the one that really, because the father is explaining to the girls, so it's like, yeah, explain it to me like I'm 5. He's explaining it to his daughter, and I really understood it now. So the father of the last Shah, he was an illiterate soldier, and the British put him, but he was having ideas and all, you know. The British put him into power. They're like, we will put you on the throne if he wanted a republic. To my understanding, from what I'm reading of this, he wanted a republic, but the British were like, we will put you on the throne if you let us take as much oil as we want. And that is he came into power. Another thing, I do not know much about this author. I saw this on that New York Times article, and there was just a little, you know, snippet of what it was about and why it was impactful. I did not know the author's grandfather was first a prince, and then when the Shah was put into power, the Shah took everything from Marjan's grandfather. The grandfather then became a communist, which got him, or he first became prime minister, and then became a communist, and that got him into all sorts of trouble where he would go to prison and be put into a cell of water for hours. Oh, that if you think, if you're in a pool for hours, like I used to lay in the pool for like 2 hours, when I would get out, my legs would be jello. The torture that this man had to go through, crazy. But yeah, I had no idea that Marjan's ancestry was like that, like from royalty. And at the time, she had no idea. Her father was telling her, both her parents were telling her all about this. So this has been extremely fascinating, informative, immersive. What more could you ask for? I am loving that so far. But that's my Thursday. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it all the way through, leave a Christmas emoji in the comments below. And as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!